I think actually this is one of the most important traits you need if you're doing entrepreneurial kind of activity, because if you give up too fast, it's over. That's it. Okay, you cannot see what actually could happen. What's the potential behind it? Okay, sometimes it's better just to move out. Sometimes, but I would say in most cases it's not. And second, for sure, once you make money out of it. So imagine you do something where you feel fulfilled, you like it, people see what you're doing, they're like grateful. And on the other hand, it also gives you some money. It gives you some kind of financial return. Ultimate combo.
Welcome to the first episode of Once Upon a Student, a place where highly accomplished individuals share their how. Today's guest, Kambis Kohansal Vajargah, co-founder of Whatchado, multiple investor, member of the venture capital called Founders of Europe, TEDx speaker, head of startup services, and deputy head of founders services at the Austrian Chamber of Economics. Tell me, Kambis, what does a person with such a busy schedule like you eat for breakfast?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the invitation. So years ago, when I started my founder journey, actually I didn't focus so much on eating and having breakfast. Actually, I was someone who just had like his first meal like during lunch. It changed, however, by getting into relationships. Then it was like some kind of procedure, a ritual procedure, which you need actually to start, well into your day. And actually now, and for sure I've read into it more, from a scientific approach. I value, having breakfast with my wife. It's part of my morning ritual. When I wake up, it's very structured, and starting in a structured and organized way is very important for me. It impacts like the rest of my day because sometimes it's very chaotic, and if you don't have the structure and this kind of stress levels so that you can actually cope with it, then you will have difficulties. And what I see is like that having this morning ritual, including my breakfast, it really actually impacts me a lot in a very positive way. So getting back to your question, what do I usually eat? So because I'm now married, actually I tend to, let's say, eat what my wife wants to eat, but it usually includes some kind of, bread, eggs, sometimes cereals. So let's say 3 different types of meals or food, let's say food types per week.
Very cool. As you mentioned, you have to maintain like a structure to have like such a busy schedule with so many projects like you. And what does help you to maintain such a structure in your life? And have you been always like that?
So I would say over the years, I improved. Because I remember when I had my first company, a challenge. It was more challenging for me. I mean, it's still challenging, but it was on a different level. Because the stress level was high, a lot of projects, and then people surrounding you are stressed, so it stresses you, and vice versa, and so on. So actually, it goes up, And the thing is, I struggled more, but that's how I then try to change it to have a more structured, let's say, program during my days. Not meaning, what happens is people call me, write emails, something happens, in the media, whatever. So there's always some kind of it's a little bit of chaos, creative chaos, let's say this.
It's difficult to not have any chaos as an entrepreneur.
Exactly, but if you have, let's say, a structured, let's say, morning ritual, for instance, or if you say, okay, you try to sleep during the night at the same time, and you try to wake up at the same time. If you have a minimum amount of hours you sleep, all these different factors, they give you a lot of energy. That's what I've seen. That's what I practice a lot, trying to see, okay, what works and what doesn't. And that's how I'm now starting with this morning ritual, which is, just to sum it up, so you wake up, you give each other a kiss, then you make the bed, then you do some sports, then you eat together, then you go have your showers, and then after 30 minutes at least, then you start like watching at your smartphone. See, okay, what kind of notifications are there, because usually there are notifications. And that's how you can start in a much more energized way. And also, don't forget to have your meals, very important. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, for instance.
So those are your non-negotiables. Non-negotiables.
So sometimes you need to be a bit more flexible, but overall, the overall picture, the grand picture, is actually this way, So it's standardized. It's something you need to like have during the day. You need to execute. also then spend time with your family, with your friends, and so on. So have some hobbies every day, some kind of sports, for instance, or if you want to listen to classic music, whatever like impacts you in a positive way. And then at night, we have having dinner together, spend time together, talk with each other, and then you try to not to sleep too late, not to work too late, and something like this. Sometimes it's not possible so easy. That's how it is. But it's always the overall grand picture. Okay, and if that's okay, then it usually works.
That's beautiful. And what I heard of this, it's that you have a lot of discipline going on in your life. And do you think this is a trait that you have already developed in your childhood, or was it something you established over time? And what was the first step to becoming that, the person?
So before, we had, having this interview, but before we had a small conversation about, I think a question will comes later, but but it refers to your questions, okay? And the thing is, usually, at least in my case, I never stop learning. There's always some new things that actually excite me, or that actually show me, okay, there can be a different way. So regarding discipline, I'm not sure if it has to do with genetics. I would say in my case, for sure it has to do with how I was raised up. Because I somehow had some stricter parents when it comes to education in particular, and this causes you or creates discipline. If that's important, because that's how you raised up, it actually impacts you. Mostly I would say positive, sometimes negative, but mostly positive. But when I was younger, I wasn't as disciplined as now. Okay, so also this evolved over time, because I saw what discipline can lead to in terms of at least say midterm and long-term success. Maybe not short-term, but midterm and long-term. Okay, consistency is very important, and consistency actually combines very well with discipline. Because you need to stay patient. You need to have this kind of structure. You shouldn't skip. Your hobbies, your deadlines, for instance, because once it starts, to happen, actually it's very easy that it happens a second, third, fourth time, and this is actually where discipline contributes a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
But it was in particular because of the way I was raised up, but also that I saw the positive impact, at least midterm or long term.
It's beautiful that you can bring such valuable things out your parental home. So thank you for sharing that. And I've read an interview that you gave to, and you mentioned that your parents wanted you firstly to become a doctor, and you even started with medical school 3 months in Budapest. And how do you think their perspective on your life has impacted you? And how are you able to take the decision and say, screw that, this is my journey and I don't want to hear anyone's opinion on that?
Yeah. So first, sure, the discipline, which we talked before, particularly they were strict when it came to education and formation. And I'm very happy that they were like this. Maybe sometimes they were overstepping, but overall it actually helped me a lot. On the other hand, I was supposed to become a doctor, or let's say a lawyer. If not a doctor, at least a lawyer. Okay, that's how my family actually overall thinks. And I started studying in Budapest for 3 months at the Semmelweis University, and actually it was quite nice. But I actually already felt that it will not work out long term. Okay. So I came back to Vienna. I started at the Vienna University of Economics and Business, the WU Vienna, and the thing was, for a lot of years, even when I started my first companies, still my parents and like even other, let's say, relatives or friends, it's not like they didn't believe what I was doing. Okay, they were to some extent also supportive, but they challenged me. They challenged me in terms of, okay, will you really succeed this way? Is there really potential behind it, and so on. So now, either it breaks you and say, okay, I don't want to do it anymore, no one believes in it, or actually it makes you even more disciplined and say, okay, now I really want to show everyone off that I can do this. And that's what I mean in terms of like this combination with consistency, discipline, because some things you won't see the impact short term, but you will see them mid and long term.
Yeah.
Okay, that's being an entrepreneur. And I also always wanted to prove them, hey, I will do it. I will show you a different way, something that you not actually wanted me to do, but it can be at least as successful as what you had thought. You know, what was like what you expected. And it took years, really, it took years, but now they see it. And so it also, you know, gave me some extra motivation.
Yeah, I believe, and thank you for sharing this wonderful story with us. And one question I particularly have, was there one moment where you knew this is the way I want to go, and this is where you decided, hey, I will also tell my parents that entrepreneurship and also studying business and economics, this is the right way for me? Or did it come naturally over time?
So one thing is, if you enjoy going to work, I mean, you don't always enjoy going to work. Sometimes work is like, can be, you know, awful, yeah? But you always have to see the big picture again, or the grand picture, as I said. You have to, maybe one day will be bad, or like 2 days will be bad, but if you, let's say, 1 year, okay, how many good days and how many bad days? If, as it was my case, if you have much more or many more good days, then that's, you know, one way to go, because it motivates you. You see, okay, I like what I'm doing. I see the impact. I see people actually are even like thankful, you know, grateful, thankful that I support them with what I'm doing, with the product, with the service. And this actually gives you some kind of first kind of energy you need, to be honest. And second, for sure, once you make money out of it. So imagine you do something where you feel fulfilled, you like it, people see, you know, what you're doing, they're like grateful. But on the other hand, it also gives you some money, you know, it gives you some kind of financial return. Ultimate combo. Yeah. So
totally
once you reach these two different factors, once I reached them, for me it was, hey, I like what I'm doing, I even earn money, so stick with it.
Yeah, I believe that, because I also get a lot of questions. How are you able to work so many hours? And I think you know that perfectly. You don't feel like working as many hours.
That's exactly the thing. Look, I can tell you, since 2012, beginning of 2012, I have like, I'm not talking about a 4-day week or 5-day week. I'm talking a 7-day week. Okay, that's actually meaning that I always had some kind of work to do in every day until now, even if it was on holiday or even if I was sick and so on. Now, for some, this sounds awful. You know, it's like, oh my God, and so on. But the thing is, I can tell you, these 7 days a week, for me, they even didn't feel like someone who has a 4-day week or is working part-time, you know? Because of all these factors I mentioned before, you know, enjoying what you're doing, seeing the effects, getting money out of it as well, always something new coming, you know, you can be creative. It's not like this if you set up a company for like all of the time, because it changes. The bigger you become, the more structure and organization you need, the more the processes need to be structured. So this, let's say, reduces one part of the creativity, but it can create more creativity somewhere else. So for me, and I can tell you, I've been working really a lot. For me, it does, until now, even now, you know, what I'm doing at the Chamber of Commerce, it doesn't feel like it feels like others. And one thing though, I want to add is that I also think this has to do with how I see work, you know. I see work as part of your life, you know, not just something to do to get money. For some it's like this, pretty fair, okay? But for me, it's part of my life so that I can actually enjoy my life. In my situation, it is. It hasn't always been like this, but it actually evolved over time. And that's very important to mention from my perspective, because I think it's also the relation I have to, you know, working.
So let me take a guess. You're not a person that seeks stability in your life. You're more a person that is very adventurous, and you are thriving on those challenges, you know? Is this right, or has it changed over time?
When it comes to myself, yes. But it depends on your situation. If you have like raising a family, you know, you're in a relationship, you have kids, you have maybe parents who become older. If you're someone with some kind of, it's a consciousness, a conscience, or whatever, then you usually wouldn't do everything what you want to do, okay? And it's my case the same. But I'm looking for some kind of combination. You know, you have this basic stability where, you know, you get the money, you know, you have friends and family supporting you in difficult times. You have someone you can always talk to. But still, you know, this kind of having this excitement as well, with a new venture, for instance, a new program, maybe even a new law. In my case, for instance, that could be interesting. Let's say the new legal entity form we have now, the FlexCap and FlexCo, which just started in Austria. This combination is actually, I think, what most people should look for. Not everyone has these opportunities. But you can create these opportunities. And this combination, you have this basic stability, but still you can be creative. You can try out new things. This is for me. Actually, this is what I call. Having a luxury life, at least in my case.
Yeah, but as luxury life, you had to work for, and this is a question that interests me a lot. Do you think it is better to start early on as an entrepreneur and to try it when you already got the experience? But on the downside, you have family, kids probably. So what do you think is?
So look, both ways work out. I'm not definitely saying number one or number two. For me, for instance, I started my first venture with 24. I was not so experienced, but actually, when I think back, I would have liked to having started earlier. Even earlier. And also not just having your own venture, maybe, or your own startup and so on, but just working somewhere. At school age. And I know entrepreneurs who have started even the company when they were still at school.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So. 5 to 10 years before me, okay? Yeah. But the thing is, overall, for sure, if you gain experience, if you work somewhere, create some kind of stability, also some financial buffer, then it's the easier way, to start your company than trying it from scratch. But what I think, and that's something I would advise everyone, start as early as possible to work, either for your own company or for someone, it doesn't matter, to gain experience, to create a network, and particularly think mid and long term then.
A beautiful quote that I've heard by Scott Galloway was, for example, that your only responsibility at a young age is to open as many doors as possible. And I think during work, making connections, you can actually build yourself a framework where you're allowed to thrive more. And back on the days you mentioned now that you founded your first company at the age of 24 years, what kind of skills that differentiated you from other people back then?
So not hard skills, I would say. Maybe, I was good in making research, analyzing companies, the market and so on. This could be seen as let's say a hard skill. But I really believe it was because I really had really high ambitions. Most founders have this kind, but really high ambitions. In combination with being persistent in what I was doing. So having some kind of fails or losses, whatever, it didn't prevent me to move on. Actually, it motivated me even more. And these kind of traits, this helped me. And what I also think is that that I feel it and I see it. If my colleagues or partners are not doing well, for instance, is there something that is challenging them, not meaning that I was always able to help them or that I always did the right thing to do at this moment, but it still could feel, read, experience it. And I think this also helped me, to understand, how to work and collaborate with each other. So overall, there was a lot of on-the-go experience, while working, and things you did worse back then. Now you do better if you are actively working on them, trying to revise them, get more, let's say, feedback from others, and then work on these issues. I think you need to be open for this. In the beginning, I was not so open for this, but once I realized the positive effects, it helped me.
Okay. Was there a particular moment where you realized that you need to learn those things?
Look, the thing is, at one point, if the workload becomes so much and you don't even enjoy it anymore to work, then you have to think about what's the reason. Why is there so much work? Why am I one of the guys who is doing it, maybe over proportionally? What's the reason behind it? And there can be different reasons. But in my case, it was okay. I became a little too arrogant, egoistic, meaning that I believed that just I can do it. I took over. I didn't give responsibilities as much as it was needed to others, and it was not anyone helping me, you know. It was like, okay, comes here and goes out and so on. But it took time. And how did I in the end change it? Because I saw how it impacted me and also like my surroundings. And for me, this was like, cannot tell you which day it exactly was, but once I realized it was for me, okay, you need to work on it, and maybe do some changes as well. Okay. After 5 years, I moved out of my first company, and this was one of these changes.
So looking back at your journey, you know, mentioned that you would have probably done things differently. But do you think those moments were necessary in order for you to develop, or do you think you could have changed them earlier on already?
I mean, for me personally, they were important. Maybe I wouldn't have like changed if I wouldn't have experienced them. But it doesn't relate to everyone. You know, some people maybe realize it by themselves earlier, or maybe later. You know, but to me, actually, it you know. The thing is, the question also relating to what you are asking. So the thing is, what is faster? For instance, you learn it step by step on your own, or there's one moment that impacts you to such a big extent that you say, okay, I have to change it. Okay, what initiates a faster change in habits, traits, and so on? And for me, these moments actually accelerated, I would say, my development. Yeah.
And you also mentioned that the founder needs also failures and persistence when they occur. What do you think was your biggest challenge, and how have you overcome it?
At the moment, the biggest challenge?
In general, the biggest challenge in your whole career?
Yeah, you know, the thing, after the experiences I made with my first company, I was really emotionally attached to it, you know, to the team, to the company, to the idea. And going out actually emotionally impacted me in a positive but also negative way, because you felt like, okay, this kind of connection is gone. So I had this really strong connection, and it took me almost 10 years, you know, to be able, you know, from my point of view, to start establishing this kind of bond with, let's say, a new idea, a new company, new, you know, colleagues again, you know. This was one of my biggest challenges, you know. And it has changed then just in the last couple of years. So it took me a lot of time to build this kind of connection again, but it's going now into this direction. This is really something, I mean, it was not like at this point of time that I was struggling so emotionally because I couldn't like find any other kind of idea, company where I can have this bond. I was just much more pragmatic, okay? But once you get into this spot again, you see, okay, how positive this can be, okay? You still should, you know, always be aware that things can change, that things can get worse, you know? So too much emotional, you know, bonding can also has its risks, okay? But still, I think it's a way to go, at least in my case, and it actually makes me better on what I'm doing.
And do you take decisions by heart or more by like headspace? So
I'm very, when it comes to decision making, for me it's a lot about data analytics, you know, being pragmatic.
Okay.
For years, actually, I disregarded gut feeling, you know, the way to go, because I saw it with others, with other colleagues of mine, what it led to.
Okay.
But the thing is, I don't think gut feeling per se is bad. So I just think sometimes it's a very good indicator. And that's something I had, you know, to accept in the last years as well, you know, that gut feeling can be a good indicator. But it's always, or even better when you validate this kind of gut feeling with data behind it. That's the way to go. And sometimes, if you're not sure, even if you have the data, you just have to decide. I think waiting too long, you know, for making a decision is worse than making a decision. Okay,
I agree, yeah.
Because you see the impact usually faster than vice versa. So in the end, sometimes you need to make a decision, and that's the moment where you actually should listen to your heart as well.
Do you think the gut feeling gets stronger over time because you just get more experienced, and on the other hand, the body knows already when do you feel like those early indicators when you will feel stress, when you feel good about the person? So I think the gut feeling will become more important with time. Is it true?
It's interesting that you ask it because more experience, should actually give you more, let's say, stability in your decision making, because you have experienced it maybe before and you believe that's the right way to go. It actually can save you a lot of time, but it can also go the other way around, because you believe you have all these experiences. You only believe, okay, what you say and decide at this moment is the right decision. So what happens is it can also go the other way, because you believe you have this experience, that again, your ego becomes too big, and then you make decisions without like the data behind it, or without letting someone else challenging it, okay? So yes, experience can actually make your gut feeling stronger, but you need to be aware that it can also lead to the other way. Yeah.
Okay, interesting to know that, yeah. And looking back on your journey, you said that you learned a lot during your startup time and then also your different endeavors. What skills were most important for you throughout your journey, and how have you learned them?
Yeah, in conversations I often get this kind of question. I mentioned some already before. I think one of the number one traits is patience.
Okay.
You need to be able to be patient, really, and not always short-term thinking, but mid-term, long-term. Sometimes it's 5-10 years. Particularly if you want to set up a new company, usually, sticking with the company 10 years, it's like a minimum, but we have been in an area in terms of like startup tech, venture capital, where it's sometimes too short-term oriented in terms of also the goals, because you always think from funding round to funding round. You have also the expectations. You see other companies, going in very fast. That's something you have seen in the last 10 years, which I think actually it's changing now. Okay. So you need to be careful as well. Okay. So that's why patience is so important. You make a decision. Sometimes the impact is not seen now, but over a longer period. Okay. Patience. Then for sure, in combination with persistency, because there will be fails, there will be people not believing in you, there will be like launches of your product which don't work. Patience, but also this persistence. Okay, I don't give up. I go forward. I think actually this is one of the most important traits you need if you're doing entrepreneurial kind of activity, because if you give up too fast, it's over. That's it. Okay. You cannot see what actually could happen. What's the potential behind it? Okay. Yeah. Sometimes, it's better just to move out. Sometimes, but I would say in most cases it's not. Okay. So patience, number one. Second, persistency, and also it's important to be able to somehow read the status of a person. What's the emotional status, how they're doing, how they're coping. If you're not sure, you just ask. I think that's also very important in the world we live. Okay, even in terms of like if we have AI and AI is coming, for sure you always have this human component. And I think understanding this, trying to understand how people might feel and so on, and just talk to them. Very, very important trait.
Yeah, I think empathy is one of the most important traits, also in working with your colleagues, to see when they have a difficult time and to really talk openly with them. And I think generally this is our society that's moved on so much to everything is quick term. If something doesn't go right, everyone is looking for a quick solution to fix it or to change your job, change your venture. And I hope really that for the startup world it will also be positive, because there are a lot of great ideas that suffer because either the founders want to go too quickly or the venture capitalists want to go too quickly with the development of the company.
Yeah, think how the consumer has been raised up in the last couple of years. One click solution. One click, I need everything. One click, I buy it. It's delivered to my house. That's it. So it's actually sometimes too comfortable. Too comfortable. And this shouldn't be the way how we are raised up, I think. Not everything is comfortable. Sometimes you need to work for it. That's it. That's how life is.
I agree. There's also, I think there's a correlation towards dating, because earlier on you really had to talk with a person to get to know them, and you really had to get the courage in order to speak with that person. And nowadays everyone is doing like online dating, and I think it's very harmful for also building relationships. And
Yeah, you always, again, here you have the positive and the negative aspects.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah, true. And we already talked about it a bit, but where do you still feel like a student?
Yeah, I mean, I actually tried to somehow before in your conversation to already go into this direction. So actually, in some areas for sure, there's a lot of experience now. You know, experience, expertise, and so on. I know how to fund a company. I know how to scale it up. I know how to invest and value a company, and so on. But to be honest, I always feel like I would say some of the famous philosophers back in the antique, you know, in Greek or Persia or whatever, they had some good quotes, you know, in terms of like how they saw their own life, and they always, some of them always felt like being a student, you know, of their life. And I also feel like this. I feel like a student all the time because it has to do with like the learning curve, you know, because new innovation, new technology leads, you know, to knowledge you might not have. So you're always in a mode of, you know, learning.
Yeah.
And a modus of learning, and that's why actually, even if I have experience and some kind of expertise here and there, and more than, let's say, the average population in a specific area, I still feel overall it's always a learning process. That's why if you ask me, do I sometimes feel like a student, I would say I always feel like a student.
Beautifully said. And what is the biggest achievement in your life?
So let's see how the next couple of years and decades work out.
Yeah.
Maybe I might change my opinion, but actually being able to balance all these aspects in your life, you know, family, wife, friends, hobbies, work, you know, for me personally, this is like my biggest success until now, because there's so much happening and still it works out. And for me personally, this is a really big success because some people don't manage to do it. Some people break down or reduce it. I might also do it at one point of time, but until now it has worked really well. And also that wherever I started, you know, whether it was in a small startup or in a big organization like the Chamber of Commerce, I could see the impact I have on my surroundings by like by caring, you know, what you do. Caring what you do, and this motivated me to do something, and having this impact on my surroundings. And now relating to the work I do, seeing the founders succeed, the founders I support, where I try to help. I cannot help all of them, unfortunately, but I also see how they progress, maybe not short term, but mid-term and long term, and this is also something that gives me really satisfaction.
I think that's a very healthy perspective on that. Not to build up like, hey, this was my biggest business success, I've built this company, and then you're building your identity out of it, but more like, hey, I'm still learning, I want to have a balance in my life, and I want to see people succeed. I think that's a very beautiful and aspiring aspect of you.
Yeah, thanks. And something I want to give to the audience. Look, you should always get more perspectives into a specific topic, different perspectives. That's very important to get. The more information you get, information is power, gives you better decision making. Okay, the more information you get, the more data points you have, the more you should usually be able to make decisions, even if it confuses you sometimes, because they might be totally controversial. But one thing, just if someone says something, even if he or she might have experience, it doesn't mean that it 100% relates to you. Okay, that's very important. Also here, you need to differentiate. Okay, not watching your favorite entrepreneur or football player, athlete, musician. Yeah, you have this kind of affiliation to this person, but it doesn't mean that whatever he or she says is totally 100% right, like when it comes to you. Okay. Also here, try to be selective, try to differentiate, take out the good things for you. That's very important. That's just something I wanted to also give to the audience. So also what I said here today, it relates to me, it relates to a lot of others, but maybe not to everyone, at least not whatever I've said. Okay? So be more critical.
Thank you for sharing that. And Last but not least, there's a very interesting question for me that I love to ask people is, what question would you be like to be asked and hasn't been asked by anyone yet?
Okay, referring to the discussion we had today, you know, about all the things we do and so on, I always hear, how are you managing to balance so many things all together simultaneously? So once in my lifetime, it would be interesting just to hear how you're not able to balance this, because yes, there's a lot of work, but actually it could be even more. So I think a lot of us, and sometimes rationally as well and reasonably, don't try to let's see, okay, what's the limit? Okay, you should be careful as well, because regarding your health, okay, you try to oversee it. But I think we sometimes don't believe enough in ourselves what we're capable of. Okay, so it's interesting to hear this person, you know, met this person who once in a lifetime asked the other way around. Because for me, it is a lot of work, but it's still not something I would say, wow, it's so unmanageable. Not many people can do it. Actually, I think more people can do it than they believe.
Thank you very
and
much.
That would be my answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
and I wish you all the best for your future endeavors, and I'm sure we will have a talk in the future as well.
Hopefully.
And yeah, thank you very much for being the first guest.
Thank you as well, okay?
Once Upon a Student.
It was a great podcast.
Thank you very much.